I don't know whether you followed that long, complex gospel reading, and we didn't even read it all. It's about seeing or not seeing or refusing to see or being unable to see or being trained not to see. It's about noticing or not noticing or refusing to notice or being unable to notice or being nurtured not to notice. The man born blind is a witness. He testifies to the fact that he was blind and now he can see, and he cannot talk about his sight without talking about Jesus, because Jesus is the giver of that gift. And so he tells his curious neighbors, I am the man who was born blind. And this man, Jesus, spread mud on my eyes and told me to go wash, and I washed, and then I received my sight. And they asked him where Jesus was, and he said, I don't know. The conversation was just kind of neighborhood gossip. But you don't get a witness like that unless there is a dispute. So then what happens is that neighborly gossip gets moved upstairs to a trial that is conducted by the local elite. And when they are introduced, the narrative says, it was a Sabbath day when he healed the guy. And so the elite do quite an extensive investigation. They interrogate everybody because they wanted to get to the bottom of this strange occurrence. It's not every day that somebody blind can see. And the reason they want to get to the bottom of it is that it didn't fit their categories of understanding or control. They can't explain it, they can't manage it, and so it's a threat to them. So they asked him about it, and he told them the same story. He put mud on my eyes, and I washed, and I could see. And then the authorities make a surprising response to the testimony. He tells them about new sight. And they focus on the details, like what did he do it and when did he do it? And they draw the conclusion he did it on the Sabbath when you're not supposed to heal people. He did not respect the old regulations. He refused the command of Mount Sinai. They neglect the wonder and they focus on the church calendar, for God's sake. The guy isn't interested in the church year because he can see. So what follows is an attempt by the authorities to reframe the case around Sabbath requirements rather than miracle. They want to minimize the miracle, and they extend their interrogation to the parents of the blind man, who are scared to death. They say, we don't know anything. Ask him. He can speak for himself. The parents never mentioned the name of Jesus. Maybe they didn't know that was his name. I think more likely they knew his name, but it was too dangerous to say it, because the name of Jesus is a threat to all of our status quo arrangements. So that interrogation didn't go anywhere, so they go back to the man himself, but he won't change his story. He is impatient with them, and he says, I already told you. You want me to tell you again? Why do you want to hear it again? And then he taunts them. He says, you want to hear it again because you want to become disciples? Is that what you want now? Have you been converted to this guy, Jesus? That'd be a big breakthrough. And then he says, you guys are so smart, but you can't explain this. You can't explain this because it outruns all of your explanatory categories. And then they get defensive and they respond like a cat who arches his back in fear. And they say, are you trying to instruct us? Do you know who we are? So this is a dramatic confrontation between the authorities who champion old established truth that knows all the answers and keeps everything under control, and on the other hand, this new inexplicable possibility that is performed by Jesus. And this story is addressed to us readers. It sets out a clear, dramatic question to us. It asks the reader to decide about the way of old management or the way of new possibility that goes beyond our control. It asks, are you on the side of managed truth that keeps the world settled? Or are you signed on with new possibilities that come when Jesus is present? And after this long commentary and these several disputatious exchanges, Jesus reappears in the narrative. He's been absent for 29 verses. It's as though he said, you all talk among yourselves. But now he's back, and he addresses both the man and he addresses the authority. He says to the man who can see, do you believe in the Son of Man, this strange figure beyond management? And the man says, I don't know. Who's that? Who's the Son of Man? And Jesus says, it's the one speaking to you. It's me. I am the Son of Man. I am this strange character from elsewhere. I am the surge of God in the world that makes all things possible. And the man who can see says, I believe, or I trust you. And then it says he worshiped him. He bowed down before the giver of new eyes. And the man has the subject of his life changed. Now there is no looking back. There's no more argument with the authorities. There's no more intimidation as his parents experienced. Now there is only trust in Jesus, the one who brings sight out of blindness and life out of death and hope out of despair. And in saying, I believe, I trust, the man defied the authorities and embraced his new life in Jesus. And then Jesus addresses the hard-hearted authorities. He says, I came into the world for judgment, by which he means I came into the world to sort things out. I came into the world to turn everything upside down. I came into the world so that those who couldn't see can see, and so that those who thought they could see turn out to be blind. Jesus came to scramble the old categories and to put the old assurances under acute scrutiny. I came into the world to redefine what it means to see. And in their confidence, they said, well, surely we're not blind. But then they begin to doubt their certitude. And what they really say to Jesus, we're not blind, are we? And Jesus says to end the story, finally, you think you can see, but you don't see me, and therefore you're blind. Because seeing means to see the new life in the world that Jesus makes possible. So imagine us as participants in this great drama. Imagine us standing for Jesus, who is the one with new life. And we are among those who worship him, or we stand with the defenders of old truth and we refuse him. And each of the characters and each of us must decide, And it turns out that seeing is to let our life be opened by the grace and the goodness and the mercy and the justice of Jesus. So we stand with this new chance of gospel possibility and old managed truth. Old managed truth, like the commandment about the Sabbath, takes many forms. It may be the old world of privilege and power and control. It may be the old truth of settled church orthodoxy. It may be the old mantras of market ideology that reduces everything to owning and having and eating. It may be the old paralysis of race, class, gender. It may be an old image of yourself given to you by your mother or your father that has kept you from the joy of the gospel. And over against all of that, this story is the man's testimony of a new bodily possibility because Jesus moved in on his life and made new things possible. Jesus is an invitation and a chance and a summons to a different kind of life. And we are always deciding. Indeed, we come here regularly to decide again. This text strikes me as particularly pertinent now because we are watching new reality emerge that does not fit the old orders. We are watching a redefined social reality of neighborly economy. We are watching a new way of church that is in touch with the real world. We are watching a new social fabric where generosity and hospitality and justice are the order of the day. We are watching that even while we know that the old world is in free fall. And what the story says is you don't have to decide everything. What we have to decide concerns Jesus, who is the point person for what God is unleashing in the world. It's all about seeing or not seeing or refusing to see or being unable to see or being schooled not to see. It's all about noticing or not noticing or refusing to notice or being unable to notice or being nurtured not to notice. And we are the ones who get to decide that we are able to say, I was blind, but now I see. And we worship, and we give thanks, and we obey, and we bear witness. We say, I have no explanation, but I have received my sight. And now we see more clearly, and therefore we love more dearly, and as we are able, we follow more nearly, clearly, dearly, nearly. It does not make the authorities happy that we do that, but it is the story of our life. And it is very good news to sign on to the new world. Amen.